This is Mike, who's in Maryland. He's our first caller. Hi, Mike.
Hey, big fan. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if you know whether or not Vinnie Vincent showed up to his own big holiday-themed bash over the weekend at SIR Studios in Nashville.
That's a great question. Was that this weekend?
Yeah, the 14th and 15th.
Do we know?
And I'm also curious whether or not anyone paid the $500 a head ticket price.
I don't know. There's been a lot of sort of wacky stuff with Vinny ever since he got back into things a couple years ago. The very first thing he did was that interview on this show. He's done some interviews since, but nobody's really pressed him on some stuff. I don't know. There was, Ed, did you see anything on that anywhere online?
I have not seen anything. Did not see anything over the weekend. I'm looking right now. So far, a big goose egg.
So I don't know.
The guy every day because he's such a freak show.
What? So, Mike, did you read anything about it happening or not?
In the past couple of months, I've seen it advertised. If you Google Vinnie Vincent under news, it'll talk about that bash, that Christmas-themed bash that he was.
Yeah, the Merry Metal Christmas thing.
That's it, yeah.
And it was supposed to be this past weekend.
Yeah, the 14th and the 15th.
And it was $500 a head.
Yes.
And I know he was taking like advanced sales on it because he needed like a head count. It was at a rehearsal studio in Tennessee.
Yeah, SIR Studios.
Yeah.
I understand.
And Vinny has canceled a bunch of things, but we don't know if this had happened and it was very minimally attended, that we're not hearing anything, or if he pulled this as well. We just don't know. Ed's doing a little research, Mike. If we can find anything out, we'll let you know. Something tells me that if it, I don't know, honestly, it may have been so far off everybody's radar that it could have happened and a few people were there, or it could have gotten canceled and nobody even bothered to report because not enough people actually bought the tickets to go.
Yeah, I just can't find anything about it. And I've got to add one more thing before I let you get back to your other callers. If you want to see something, if you and your listeners want to see something on YouTube that is hard to wrap your head around, it is a recent video of, I would say, arguably one of the top 5 rock and roll icons of all time who dropped out of sight 30, 35 years ago, showed up completely unrecognizable on a religious talk show.
Who is it?
Can you guess who I'm talking about?
Rock guy?
A rock guy. Top 5 of all-time rock icons. Dropped out 30, 35 years ago.
I'm trying to think. You got me very intrigued here, Mike. Who could that be?
I'm talking about Little Richard.
Oh, it was his birthday. Wasn't his birthday recently?
I'm not sure, but you've got to take a look at this video. Bald-headed, talking like a man, wearing a business suit, and in a wheelchair.
What show was this on? This just happened?
It was within the last year. It was a cable religious TV talk show. I just happened to catch it. I forget how I caught it, but if you did not know that was Little Richard, you would absolutely not recognize him.
Wow, we got to pull that up too, Mike. Thank you, Mike. You gotta love my audience, man. Mike started on Vinnie Vincent and ended on Little Richard.
No one has ever done that before.
That is first in Trunk Nation history, but I love it. That's what Free For All is all about, man, in a nutshell.
I do know that Little Richard went all Jesus-y a while ago, and our call screener, Connor, just sent me the video, I think. Let me see if I can access that.
I'll take a look at it during the break and see if I can check that out.
When it comes to Vinnie Vincent, I found an article from Ultimate Classic Rock published a story on, when was the 11th? That was last Wednesday. It was an article about Gene Simmons apologizing to Desmond Child because he did not like I Was Made for Loving You. But there's a little blurb at the bottom. It says right here, meanwhile, former Kiss guitarist Vinnie Vincent announced that his Merry Metal Christmas event in Nashville during the weekend had reached capacity with only premium tickets left remaining at a cost of $1,000 each. So far, there's been no update as to how many people actually attended.
Okay, so conceivably the thing actually happened.
Maybe.
There's got to be somebody out there listening, certainly to this show, knowing what a Kiss sort of stronghold this is for Kiss Talk on radio, that's got to know if the thing actually happened that maybe went to it. So I'd love to hear from that person and get a little report. 844-686-5863, 8446-VOLUME. This is Jim in Tennessee. Hi, Jim. Maybe Jim was there. He's in Tennessee. What's going on?
Was not.
Jim was not there.
Hey, I just wanted to pass along kind of an entertaining story.
Go ahead.
A good friend of mine was a songwriter and a good friend of Phil Everly. Phil eventually found his way to Tennessee, and this guy had been buddies with him for about 15 years, and we're good friends. And one day we were just talking, and I was asking him about his relationship with Phil, and he said, "Hey, did I ever tell you the story about Bob Dylan and George Harrison and Phil trying to get backstage with the Eagles?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, they were all having dinner together in L.A., and this was when, I guess, the Hotel California tour had kicked off. Not sure if it started in L.A. or what. But they go backstage, or they go to the backstage entrance, and there's a young security guard in his 20s, which would have made him born like late 50s. And Phil Everly approached him, and he said, "Yeah, I'm trying to get backstage. Phil Everly?" And he goes, "Phil Everly?" He goes, "Yeah, I was with the Everly Brothers. I had, a couple of hits, Bye Bye Love, like a little Susie." He goes, "Okay, hang on, Everly. No Phil Everly, sorry." And so Bob Dylan said, "Here, let me handle this." He goes up there, he goes, "How about Bob Dylan?" Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan. No Bob Dylan. And so then he looks at him and he goes, "Oh, okay. Well, have you ever heard of the effing Beatles?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have." And he said, "This guy's a lead effing guitar player." And he said, "George Harrison. Is he on your list?" And he goes, "George Harrison. Harrison. No George Harrison." So they got turned away by a security guard outside the backstage entrance door. I just thought that was a hilarious story.
Now, do you know, Jim, for a fact that this is a true story?
I know that my friend was best of best friends with Phil Everly. Best of best friends with Phil Everly.
And he said that Phil told him this? Yeah. So did they go to the show like on a whim, like last minute?
Yeah. Like they were out at dinner, and they said, "Hey, the Eagles are kicking off for Hotel California, or in town for Hotel California. Let's go catch it." And let's try to get backstage. And I, my friend was like, he wrote a lot of the last songs on Phil's very last album, and he had no reason to. I've been friends with him for 40 years, and he has no reason to, puff me up with any kind of talk or anything like that. He thought it was a hilarious story.
Well, here's the thing, Jim. Given the time frame that you're talking about, right, which would be like 79-ish, that's okay. The only reason why I don't think that that's completely a fabricated story and that there could be some truth to that is this. Today, if you are a major artist and you want to go to a show last minute, you can easily pick up a cell phone and call somebody in the band or text them or somebody on the crew or have management contact someone in their management or what have you. 79, you didn't have that capability. There were no cell phones. There was no communication like that. So that's the only like if you would have told me that that story happened today or even in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, I'd say that's ludicrous because any of those guys would have had to know somebody in the camp, would have just sent a message, hey, I'm coming down, and it would have been all set up. But back then, if you were doing something on a whim, you kind of had to work the door or the person at the door or physically be there to get in because you had no way really of contacting them on short notice.
Yeah, what I think is just really amazing is how this guy really stuck to his duty. I mean, he had a list, that's all he was letting in, even though he knew who George Harrison was.
Yeah,
Amazing.
well, yeah, that's true too. Yeah, it's interesting, and thank you, Jim, for the call. It almost in a weird sort of way connects to the whole because there's everything has a hot story for 24 hours, and the hot story like a week or so ago that wouldn't die because everyone was outraged that Billie Eilish didn't know who Van Halen was. And my favorite thing was I had a caller to this show say, well, I didn't know who Billie Eilish was until this whole controversy, which I thought was just perfect for my audience. But look, if somebody's 20 and their job is to work security and it's beat into their head that they only let people in that are on that list, I don't care who you are or how famous you are. If you're doing your job properly, you don't let them in. Because you don't know, like, even if you do recognize, hey, that's Bob Dylan, hey, that's George Harrison, you also don't know what's going on, like the dynamic. There are people that are really famous that know each other, but they're not friends. They may even have a beef between them. They don't want to see that person. So you're right that guard sort of doing his job to the letter of the law is, although it sounds ridiculous to not let these people in, not entirely crazy. But to me, what that screams of more than anything is the communication channels of the time. You got to really put that into perspective because now it's, you're an hour out of showtime and oh shit, I want to go to something. Just send a text or an email or a call to somebody in the camp or the members themselves. Couldn't do that in 79. Things had to be prearranged through whoever's office prior to getting there. Remember that. I mean, that's a huge factor. Hell, I remember going to shows in the 80s when I worked in the industry, and if you were going to go and you were going to be in town, you had to contact that person a few days out to get on the list and make sure things were all set up. Now, how many times I've been in a city, I didn't know somebody was playing. It's an hour before they go on, and I know someone enough to send a quick text. Hey, come down. We'll put you on the list. So that to me is the biggest factor right there of what supports that story potentially being true. And the fact that a guy who's 20 might not know certainly wouldn't know who Phil Everly is. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility at all.